Aloha, it's a nice Sunday morning here in Hawaii, and I am going to spend a few minutes and show you the first project that I've developed to help introduce you to Bootstrap 3. And in general, I intend these projects to be useful as templates, as sample code that you can build upon. So for each of these tutorials, I'm going to basically go through the same process of showing you how you would set up Eclipse and get started using this code as a template. So the first one we're going to talk about today is the bootstrap-example-intro basic, and as you can see, I've filled out my little bootstrap helper bookmark thing with a link to the basic branch of this particular project. So if you've got to ICS Software Engineering bootstrap-example-intro some other way, and you find yourself in another branch like master, you're going to want to click the basic branch to be here. Once you're there, you can just download the zip file. It'll go into your downloads folder like this. Later on in the semester, we'll talk about Git, and you'll find out how you can clone repositories and fork them and all that kind of stuff. But for right now, you don't need to know any of that. You just click on this download zip button. And once you've done that, what I would do, I guess I'll just, well, I'll put this into my home directory actually, because oftentimes, particularly on Windows, you don't want to be doing any project development inside paths that have spaces. It's generally a bad idea with Java, so I forget on Windows whether the downloads directory is above documents and settings or something like that that has spaces, but you want to stay away from that. So anyway, once we're in, we've got this project, it's been unzipped, and it's called Bootstrap Example Intro Basic. So the first thing you want to do is actually rename this folder, and let's pretend that we're going to use this as a template for a new project, a new web app we're going to develop called the web app for Foo. So it's going to be the Foo site. So we're going to rename that folder to Foo site, and then the second thing we're going to do is we're going to use the Eclipse import to load this into Eclipse. So all of these projects come with the .project file. You can see that here. So it means that we can simply do an import of existing projects into Workspace, select the root directory, which is going to be Johnson, and then we'll select Foo site, open it, and we're going to see we have this project called Bootstrap Example Intro. So we'll click Finish. There it is. And then the second thing we're going to want to do immediately is rename the project using our refactor menu to Foo site. Okay, so now we have a we've downloaded that template code, and we've renamed the folder to be Foo site. We've renamed the project to be Foo site. We can go in here and we can take a look, and here's our template code, which we'll get to in a minute. But there's one last thing we want to do, which is in order to play around with it, we're going to want to enable live reloading. So we'll go plus Johnson Foo site. Okay, so now that's enabled, and then here we can say open Johnson Foo site index.html, and there is our page displayed. And just to check to make sure that we've got everything working the way we want, I'm going to save out this and find that it's not, oh, I'm sorry. One last thing we've got to do is we've got to enable live reload in our browser by clicking that button. And so now, if I save it out, immediately it appears in the browser. Okay? All right, so now we're all set up to actually, kind of do work based upon this template, and it's all renamed to something more appropriate for whatever we're going to do. Okay? So having done that, I think it's useful to spend a couple of minutes just looking at this code and seeing what we have here. This is kind of the very simple, basic Bootstrap template file. We've got the HTML5 doc type. We start with HTML, then we have the head, and this is something you're going to want to edit to be, say, Foo site. Save it out, and now you can see up here in the title bar we've got Foo site, or maybe we'd say Foo's site. I don't know. That maybe is a little better. I don't know. Maybe it's just foo. Anyway, then Bootstrap recommends we have this Viewport Tag Meta tag that we put in. And then in particular here, this is important. We're just going to load the minified Bootstrap CSS definitions from a content delivery service, NetDNA, okay, or content delivery network, NetDNA. And we're not going to download the Bootstrap code and all that, you know, create the CSS subdirectory and all that stuff. At this point in time, it's much simpler to simply get it off the net this way. And this is the line of code you have to do there. And then we'll have a link to the style.css, okay, which you can see exists here. So basically all of your, you know, you're going to almost always want some kind of site-specific customizations. And so the kind of the template is going to, you know, load them from here. And then we again have some code that supports IE and below, and IE8 and below. And again, we're going to load this from a content provider. Now, just a quick note, sometimes you'll see these URLs without the prefix, the protocol prefix. And the reason that they do that is so that if you're serving these from an HTTPS, they will use HTTPS as the protocol, and if you're serving it from HTTP, it'll use the HTTP protocol to request it. That's supported by browsers and is a great thing when you're actually serving from HTTP. But in our development scenario, you notice we're using the file : protocol in order to load these sites. So that particular trick that these, you know, CDNs want you to do won't work in our specific case because we're doing development locally using the file. So, you know, basically it's fine. Just put in HTTP : and you'll be good. And then note that if you ever are, you know, kind of doing production level development where you are actually serving HTTPS in certain situations where you got passwords or whatever, then you actually want to do that / thing, but then it won't work with the file : protocol. Okay. So then we've got kind of the generic responsive navbar. So you can see that as we're getting close, we go to these little pill things, okay? And you see these little 3 vertical bars. That's because in our code, okay, you can see them right here. Here's a span class icon bar, span class icon bar, span class icon bar. So we could actually get rid of one of them. Let me first make this like this. So if we go and we delete this one, and then we save, you can see all of a sudden the icon bar has gone to just 2 of them. And in fact, we could, you know, put it in and put another one in and save it out. What's happening here? Oh wait, we've got, oh shoots, I've got my, there we go, I had a syntax error. So now you can see there's 4 in there. Okay, so let's go back to 3 the way we had it initially. Okay, so what I'm trying to illustrate to you through this is that you should be playing around with these templates in order to understand what they do. You know, feel free to just basically delete stuff at random and see what happens, just like I did. Sometimes you'll make mistakes, but you know, making the mistakes actually is useful. You learn things from doing it. Okay, so now we have the navbar right there, and then we've got this div class page content. Okay, page content is just setting the padding and the text align so things line up. You'll notice this padding top 50 pixels. Let's see why that's there. So the easiest way to find out why that's there is to delete it. Okay, so let's delete it, save it out, and what you can see is that this navbar is fixed to the top of the page, and so we need to move the contents of the page, everything in the body, down 50 pixels so that it gets out of the way of the navbar. So I'll save this out, and you can see this now moves down. Okay, the other thing is we have this image. We want this centered, and so that's how we do that. Everything else is, we've got this H1 hello world. Get rid of the 2. It goes back to just regular. And then finally at the bottom of the page you can see we have these 2 scripts. Again, we're using HTTP URLs to load jQuery as well as the Bootstrap customizations for JavaScript components. So all that is available. So in generally what you're going to do is you're going to fiddle with all the stuff inside the body up to the loading of the JavaScript components, and you're going to fiddle with the style definitions, and that's how you're going to make it work. All right, see you at the next tutorial.